Hello, I'm Dr. Donovan Irven. I'm the Director of Philosophical Praxis here at Filo Sofi Arts. And I want to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing this weekend with the art of questioning, questioning art with Oscar Brenifier. So the first part, the art of questioning, is really getting us to think more about the thinking process itself. So rather than the specific content of a particular question, though we do ask plenty of interesting questions, the point rather is to make explicit the process of thinking itself, and to use questioning to slow people down, to clarify the kinds of concepts that they're using and the way that they're thinking about things, and to engage them in dialogue with the others in the group so that they can help each other, question each other, and bring out any sort of presuppositions or hidden assumptions that lie behind the questions and the statements being made, and interrogate them to see if they're sort of worth holding on to, or rather, no, we will get rid of those. So there's a lot of sort of self-examination that goes on in the art of questioning. We sort of learn a lot of things about how we frame the world and how we think about the world. Not really so that we can say that those things are necessarily, oh, they're definitely good or definitely a bad thing, but rather so that we can just become more aware, so that we can move the processes that go on in our thought into conscious awareness. And so philosophically speaking, we have a lot in common with, for instance, American pragmatists like John Dewey, who want to take experience, and for us particularly, the experience of art, and think about how we can sort of increase our conscious interaction with the world around us and become more aware not just of the world, but of our place in the world, and how we interact with it and how we affect change for better or worse in the world. The other important thing that it allows us to do is get a little distance from our sort of beliefs and convictions. This is sort of phenomenological in flavor. There's a type of bracketing or a setting aside of a lot of our knowledge and presuppositions about how things are supposed to work, rather than leaning heavily on the history of ideas and expert knowledge and philosophical concepts. Rather, we try to set that aside as best as we can and just deal with the phenomenon in front of us. What do you see? What can you explain about what you see? And how can you justify your interpretation of those observations that you're making? So then when we turn to look at a work of art, so for instance, this painting by Iris Scott over here, participants can look at a painting like this, and one of the exercises we'll do is just to make an observation about the painting. It can be anything. It could be something very obvious. Oh, I see blue in the painting, I see a rooster, I see an ocean. It could be something a little more abstract, and we could interrogate why a person thinks they see something that's surreal or something that's nightmarish. And this creates an important distinction. So for instance, it makes a good distinction between what we observe and what mental constructs we're bringing to the painting in judgment. So for instance, we observe something, blue, streaks of color, the rooster. But if we were to say something like, well, it's surreal or it's a nightmare, now we're talking about a mental construction or a concept that we apply to the painting in a judgment. And so we want to understand and check with the other people in the group why we make the judgment that we do. So what about the painting leads us to the judgment that it's surreal or nightmarish or unsettling or joyful or whatever it is that the person sees? What about what they observed? What about the color, the composition, and so on, leads them or warrants or justifies their interpretation that that a certain concept applies. So that's what we've been doing here all weekend, both in Filo Sofi Gallery and in other galleries and locations around New York. And we hope to be sharing more of that with you in the days and weeks to come. So stay tuned for more information and more examples of how to sort of more critically engage not just works of art, but how you can use art to more critically and deeply engage your experience generally and become sort of a more aware, thoughtful participant in the world. Okay, so thank you very much, and we hope to see you soon.